I can hear you. Fuck, it's loud. Can you bring the level down? I think the headphones are very loud. I think yeah, okay, it's good. Yeah, yeah. I think that just the talkback mic is too loud. Yeah. Mic testing 1 2 3. Yeah, only the talkback mic test. Okay, mic. Okay, now I can hear it. Okay, so can you bring the headphone level little down? Auxiliary down. Uh, Hold on. Mic testing. Mic testing. Okay, so yeah, so channel one. Channel one a bit down. Mic testing. No, the auxiliary, the headphone. Mic testing. Mic testing. What am I talking about? Is this channel one or channel two? Mic testing. This is good. This is good. Okay. Can you increase a bit? Increase the auxiliary. Mic testing. 1 2 3. 1 2. Yeah, this is good. Checking. This is channel. Hello. Channel two. Can you bring this a little high? Mic testing. This is channel two. Channel two. Bit louder. Louder. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Little lower. Little lower. Okay. Good. Good. That's good. Okay, we are good.
well since 2008 and will still be innovating in 2028.
I'll never forget where I started. I'll never forget my failures and disappointments. I remember them as stepping stones. There are no secrets, no shortcuts, only hard work. I know all my strengths, but more importantly, I know all my weaknesses. I surround myself with those who help me unleash my full potential. I give my body exactly what it needs, then I put in the work. I test, improve, and retest. It just has to be done every single day. I am Matthew Fraser. I don't want to think I'm getting better. I want to know it.
Some days are tougher than others. But we see in each other what no one else can. We sweat together. We endure together. Every one of us, redefining ourselves. We achieve together. All of us.
we have a chair we can put that up on?
I'll never forget where I started. I'll never forget my failures and disappointments. I remember them as stepping stones. There are no secrets, no shortcuts, only hard work. I know all my strengths, but more importantly, I know all my weaknesses. I surround myself with those who help me unleash my full potential. I give my body exactly what it needs, then I put in the work. I test, improve, and retest. It just has to be done every single day. I am Matthew Fraser. I don't want to think I'm getting better. I want to know it. I'll never forget where I started. I'll never forget my failures and disappointments. I remember them as stepping stones. There are no secrets, no shortcuts, only hard work. I know all my strengths, but more importantly, I know all my weaknesses. I surround myself with those who help me unleash my full potential. I give my body exactly what it needs, then I put in the work. I test, improve, and retest. It just has to be done every single day. I am Matthew Fraser. I don't want to think I'm getting better. I want to know it.
Some days are tougher than others. But we see in each other what no one else can. We sweat together. We endure together. Every one of us, redefining ourselves. We achieve together. All of us.
barbell since 2008 and will still be innovating in 2028.
I'll never forget where I started. I'll never forget my failures and disappointments. I remember them as stepping stones. There are no secrets, no shortcuts, only hard work. I know all my strengths, but more importantly, I know all my weaknesses. I surround myself with those who help me unleash my full potential. I give my body exactly what it needs, then I put in the work. I test, improve, and retest. It just has to be done every single day. I am Matthew Fraser. I don't want to think I'm getting better. I want to know it.
Some days are tougher than others. But we see in each other what no one else can. We sweat together. We endure together. Every one of us, redefining ourselves. We achieve together. All of us.
last year.
Touch.
I'm chasing him alongside with Bill Grunley. We'll be with you guys all weekend long as we are starting one of the most popular and highly attended sanctional events of the season here in Dubai.
Yeah, this used to be the big of the big ones. I mean, not just money-wise, but who was coming in. And now with the way that they've changed up the sanctional and the qualifying setup, this is now the 5th qualifying out of all the sanctional events for the season. So it's interesting to see now how some of these athletes are changing what they need to do as you come into an event like this early in the season.
And a couple new changes this year. We start with the men's division. Number one, Matt Fraser is not here, so that opens up the doors to a lot of athletes. Particularly, we're going to look at the podium from last year with Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson, Willie George, but they have Travis Mayer and Roman Karenikov.
Yeah.
Right. This will be a good test, I believe, for Roman, just because we are not sure if he'll even be able to make the games this year with visa issues, and this is quite a stacked field to put yourself up against coming into Dubai.
Well, last year that was the whole thing. Matt ran away. I mean, he smashed the field last year with the last 2 days, winning all the events and just blowing everyone else away. So the fact that he's not there and everyone was battling for second, now that that's not the case, now we have a true battle in the men's field to see who really is going to be pushing, because the 2, 3, and 4 were all really close. Matt was well above everyone else. So I really want to see what our 3 Canadians are going to do. And again, the fact that we had the Open as our qualifier to get into this, we get to see some of those Open performances and now in a live head-to-head battle, which I think is going to be really interesting.
Now let's touch on the women's side. We have the closest finish ever, and almost any event we've ever seen, between 4 women: Sam Briggs, Jamie Green, Sarah Signesdotter, and Karen Frey, who made a name for herself last year here at the Dubai CrossFit Championships, with Briggs taking the win. All 4 of them are back in contention, plus one more, Katrin Davis-Daughter.
Yeah, and the fact that it was so close, I mean, literally event to event to event, the scores were changing. And it was so fun to watch and so fun to be a part of, because every single event mattered. Now when you throw Katrin in there as well, I mean, come on. This is a who's who in a massive battle this early in the season. So this is going to be super exciting on the women's side.
Starting off with the team event this morning for team event number 1. Rich Froning has come in to program this sanctioned event. So there's going to be a lot more emphasis on team chemistry and team communication. And so when you look at the makeups of these teams, your top 3, number 1, we're kind of looking at the difference between the 2 teams that are about, the family business in terms of the team, or all business in terms of the team.
Yeah, and we always talk about how important the communication is. And if one of the teams that I have to look at right off the top is going to be Misfits team. You have the 2 best women competing on a team. They are strong, they are experienced, they are skilled with the gymnastic skills. So usually you're kind of banking on the weakness of your women. That's not the case with these guys. And then with Travis Williams and Roy Gamboa, very experienced people, but this is what their deal is. They're not a family organization, they're business. And Travis right away went out to grab these ladies to make a team work. So that's going to be really huge. What that will do compared to a team, if you look at like Team Prepared, which is you have a husband and wife, and Phil Hesketh and Mia Ackerlund, now Hesketh. A lot of communication there. And then, we got Cake. Very, very, very tight friendships with Danny Spiegel and Alex Smith. That communication is now business versus friendship, and now I want to see what's going to be more important and how it's going to work.
And team event is underway. They are starting off with 4 rounds of a 150-meter swim ocean relay. Different than what we've seen in the past, a couple different ways we've done this. We've seen swimming at the games, and I think that's one of the unique qualities of the Dubai CrossFit Championship, because all the unique, not just the events that they have and the star-settedness and the prize purse, but the locations that they are able to go to here in Dubai, they have all access around this entire country.
And that was one of the beautiful things that I liked about the games, is when you have all these different venue options, not just a competition floor like a regular gym setup. The fact that they have the ocean here, the fact that they have access to sand dunes, the fact that they have access to all kinds. I mean, if you want to go down a ski slope, you can go down a ski slope here. You can do anything you want. So I love the fact that they are doing swimming. And again, I've talked about this for years, and we have had so many other events where we've talked about have CrossFit swimmers actually started coming to the forefront yet. Have these athletes start to do that and really become comfortable in the water. And I would say that last year was the first year that we finally started seeing athletes being able to swim and not being freaked out by swimming. Their fitness was able to carry them through so much.
First athletes on the teams underway. They can choose any order they want. It is a relay-style event of 4 150-meter open water swims. Now, one thing I do actually enjoy about this event is typically we'll see swim events that have longer distances, 300, 400, 500, even maybe up to 1,000 meters
Right.
open water swim. When you drop it down to 150 meters, now you take the comfort zone of, well, if I just swim and make it, I'm good. Now you have to actually sprint through the water, and that adds an extremely different element to this.
Well, you have to be a fast swimmer. You have to not be worried about people being in your face, getting kicked in the face and arms and that sort of thing. But the strategy here is going to be a little bit different. Now it's going to be what's your entry and how's your exit. The water is not deep right away. So if you have a taller athlete, you can have them stepping a lot further. And if I'm stepping over the water, I'm always going to be faster than even a fast swimmer. Same thing coming in. So if we start to see some of these athletes as they're making their way back in, are they able to do what's called dolphining? And dolphining is when you basically try to get your body out of the water, dive into the water, hands go to the ground, then you jump off your feet and continue to do that. So you're not pushing against the water. If you're walking in against that, then that's a lot of extra weight. That's a lot of extra surface area that you're putting against that water, and it's just going to wear you down.
First swimmers coming into the beach. 150 meters done. You can see out in the ocean the two buoys. They'll swim out to the right buoy, across the screen to your left around the second one, and then between the flags on the way in, tag their teammate. Now you see a lot of these athletes sitting in the foreground, wrap themselves in towels. It is cold this morning. we had some cloud seeding. Apparently Dubai can make their own weather.
You can do whatever you want here. That's it. That's how incredible it is.
It had
in Dubai.
been raining all morning long, but a first teammate is in, and they'll just tag and make their way back out. And a lot of this just comes down to the speed of your team. We got Cake, Alex Smith tagging off from Cody Mooney. Again, one of the teams we were looking at to do well here this weekend. Our last teammate is in. So the second athletes for the teams in the water for their 150-meter leg for this team sprint swim relay.
One thing that I'm seeing way different than last year when they had the swim event is last year there were waves. Last year there was a lot of chop in the water. I mean, look how flat it is. So for the athletes that have not had a lot of wave time, ocean time, open water time, those that have put time in the pool, this is very similar. The only difference with this is that you don't have that black line at the bottom of the pool that you're trying to like go back and forth on. But generally speaking, it's flat. And so that makes it extremely easy. You're not worried about froth being thrown in your face, water being thrown in your face, or just when you go to take a breath that you get water in your face that way. It's very smooth. So all these athletes, it's really going to calm them down, which I'm hoping allows them to push a little bit harder because now they don't have that extra, all those extra variables to deal with.
It takes a little element out of the, and we're talking about last year. Last year it was choppy.
Oh, man.
And if you've never experienced waves, I mean, you're from California.
Yeah.
You understand what real waves look like. But if you've never been in that before, it's quite of a shock
totally
coming into that. But being, like you said, Bill, it's like having nice, clean, flat water this morning for these athletes is the best thing that they could have asked for coming into an event like this to start the weekend.
Well, and then, we talk about how with swimming, one of the important parts of swimming is the efficiency in your stroke. We talk about, being able to put your head down so that your hips come up so you're nice and flat in the water so you're not pushing water when you're swimming. And as a swimmer, it's the same thing. If you put your head down and you can get as plane as possible, it's going to be that much easier. Look how flat the water is. It makes it so much easier for these athletes to do that. Because generally speaking, in an open water setting, you have to get your head up to see where you're going. So that's going to drop your hips. That's going to be a lot more water that you're pushing. We're not going to have that issue here at all.
Second athletes for the teams making the last turn coming in back to the beach. We had about 3 teams neck and neck coming into the first leg. One thing I like about this is that obviously everyone has to have the capacity to swim these days. I mean, that is just now a staple skill that CrossFitters must-have.
Yep.
Not you should, think about working on this, but
Finally.
it's just as important as, being good at snatch, clean and jerk, ring muscle-ups, handstand push-ups. But to see the athletes come in for an event like this is that there's a lot can be made up if you have someone who has not just experience with the water, but a background in that.
And you don't even need to have a huge background in swimming. If you were a high school swimmer, which I mean, it's kind of like saying that I played soccer when I was a little kid. If you have that amount of technique or that amount of time, then that's going to pay massive dividends to your team when you're swimming, because you're not having to worry. You're not having to fight the water. You can just kind of swim.
And that is Alex Smith from We Got Cake. He made up a lot of ground. He was about third or fourth into the water, and he just destroyed the field. So We Got Cake has moved into the lead as they tagged off for their third athlete. That is Jessica Griffith into the water for We Got Cake, sitting in first place. Currently 2 down, 2 athletes left to go.
And you saw that's the comfort. That's that having the ability to move in the water freely and not worry about, can I breathe? You can worry about racing. Those that can think about racing are going to be able to make up that so much distance like that. Can you please tell us when you're going to put us on camera?
About half the field in the water. Other half making their way out to tag, so we're nearly halfway through event number 1. You can see the top left part of your screen, 4x150-meter swim. This is the first event of the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championship, as we have 2 athletes down, 2 athletes left to go. Currently in the lead, We Got Cake. They've had their first 2. Cody Mooney and Alex Smith has led off. And now it's Jessica Griffith's turn to at least hold on to that lead, maybe extend it. But the amount of ground that Alex Smith had made up going into the water, I mean, he was a good 30, 40 meters behind those first 3 athletes as he started. And when you're talking about a 150-meter swim,
it's so fast. I mean, you don't have time to
that's
mess
so
around.
fast, but that is a lot of distance to make up in such a short amount of time.
But one of the other things that I liked seeing was he was racing the race. It wasn't just a swim. It was the entry into and out of the water. Did you see how fast he came up? So just the run in and out is going to save a lot of time. The majority of CrossFit athletes that I have seen when it comes to swimming is they are mentally preparing themselves before they even get in the water. So they're slowing down. They're not racing to the water. If you get a swimmer, they're going to race to the water because they know once they hit it, they'll be fine. But Alec didn't do that. I think that really saved a lot of time as he was going in and out.
And that's a good point, is being such a short swim, now you have these little elements that make big factors. Because when you're talking about a 500-meter ocean swim, and everyone's doing a dead sprint to the water, you're like, why are you doing that?
Totally. That's
it's
a whole
not
different
going to matter.
It's a whole different deal.
Here, being just a 150, it does matter.
Yep.
How you get into the water, how you navigate the wading into the water as well. Just like you said, that dolphin-style duck dive entry now actually has a massive impact on the speed of your race.
It's huge. I mean, in reality, so you can see that they're swimming along the beach out between the two far buoys. I mean, basically, that's the only real swimming part that you should be doing. I mean, maybe a little bit as you get out to the buoy, but there's a lot of movement you can be doing that is not swimming, that you are not using a whole lot of energy. I mean, when you do that dolphin, you should be able to actually glide underwater. It's not about, it's kind of like on a row. You don't just want to pull the cable back and forth as fast as you can. You have that rest, that glides element of the stroke. Same deal here. So there shouldn't be a lot of swimming. But when you do swim, go, and then the parts that you're not, race it.
You can see the fore part of your screen, that duck dive or that dolphin dive style you were talking about earlier, Bill, is diving under and trying to push off the bottom of the ocean floor a little bit faster than just swimming, especially at the end of that race.
Totally. So you see those last couple dolphins with the athlete that's in the lead there just coming out of the water. Same idea. Do that as long as you can until you can start running, and even high stepping helps too.
And Jessica Griffith maintaining the lead for We Got Cake as Danny Spiegel anchor leg for We Got Cake entering the water on the right side of your screen. Have about a 10-second lead on second place. Team Prepared sitting in second. And that was Phil Hesketh entering the water. And that was one of the teams we were looking at coming in. And second, third, and fourth close behind. So you have your two leaders well ahead. Currently, We Got Cake. Danny Spiegel's in the water, and Team Prepared as Phil Hesketh anchoring for their team. Two of the teams you're talking about that should have a massive impact on the event this entire weekend.
Well, I mean, We Got Cake. The fact that if you break that team up, you could put them all in the individual competition. I mean, their skills are unreal, individually. So when you match them up, and the way they really complement, the way the We Got Cake team really complements each other with their skills and abilities, and takes that. A lot of the individual events are you have to have a real high pain tolerance. So here you can kind of remove that a little bit. So now you really let your skills just kind of flourish, and I think that's gonna do well for them this weekend.
I think one team that we mentioned before this event started was Team Misfits, right, with Williams and Gamboa, Neisler and Williamson, the second half of OC3 team on the women's side. When you talk about a swim event, this is probably their most damage control one.
Yeah.
When you look at Williams and Gamboa, not the most aquatic animals you've ever seen take the competition floor.
No.
In fact, I think I heard we had a massive rain delay earlier this morning, and Williams was like, just cancel it. Cancel the swim.
Yeah, that's what he was hoping was going to happen. I think that would have been good for them. But the nice thing about this is what I've seen about with Tyler when he has to deal with any event. Now, we've seen him on so many different teams now, and I think he brings this to all the teams that he puts together. The team doesn't seem to get bothered by an event if they don't do real well or if they have a damage control event. He just kind of laughs it off and jokes it off. So I think that the fact that he's like, oh, man, I really wish they would cancel this, that's just a joke, but he knows what he's doing, and I think that's going to really play out well for him.
All final athletes into the water for the last leg of this 4x150-meter ocean swim. In the middle left side of your screen, however, the race for first is on with Danny Spiegel and Phil Hesketh now side by side, well ahead of the rest of the field, nearly 25 or 30 meters. And as they're about neck and neck with the swim, Bill, now we start talking about those little details that make a big difference in such a short ocean swim. How do you exit the water, and how do you handle that short little sprint up the beach?
Well, and you have to remember that you are always going to be faster running than you are going to be swimming. So a lot of these athletes may think that they have to swim diagonally over to their area, which is actually making their distance of swim longer. Just swim straight in. Doesn't matter where you are, swim straight in, and then you can outrun whatever you need to do after that.
Hesketh on the right, Spiegel on the left. Hesketh with about 10 seconds behind Spiegel coming in. And it's going to look like Hesketh and Team Prepared is going to take team event number 1 as We Got Cake, anchored by Danny Spiegel, will get second place.
And even that was close. Phil came out of the water so much further ahead of Danny Spiegel, but he slowed down on his run. He almost got beat by Danny, who was just sprinting up to the finish mat. So, again, we're racing the entire time. The race is done when you cross the finish line, not just when you get out of the water.
And again, anchor leg was Alex Ellebro. So he was actually anchoring for Team Prepared. Now you have some other final athletes coming in. And as quickly as team event number 1 started, we are nearly done as they will have more events later to come. And the sun is starting to make its way out. I'll tell you what, it was an aggressive start to the morning here in Dubai. I mean, we had some rainstorms, and I mean, you put your hoodie on.
I got my jacket on. That's not supposed to happen here in the desert.
See the Burj Al Arab on the right side of your screen. One of the beautiful backdrops we have at the 2000 Dubai CrossFit Championships. And again, it's not just the venues that they have and the quality of the competition that they bring, but the spectacle around here is second to none.
I mean, look at that. Just look at what these athletes have to do. And I think that's one of the cool things about these sanctional events, even just all over, is you get to really experience a lot of different places in the world. But, wow, I mean, we've been here 3 and 4 times. This is the 8th event that they have done. And it just gets prettier and prettier and better every year.
All teammates are in for event number 1. Unofficially, it will be team prepared, just edging out. We got cake for that first place position. And that is a good start for a new team here at the 2000 Dubai CrossFit Championship. As we will stop with the team event, and we will move to individual competition. And Bill, we were talking earlier about the men's field and the women's field. The women will be starting 3 heats of this. And I hope we get anything close to the show that we got last year.
I really can't see how we can't. I mean, the event will be a little bit different. It's not just going to be only a swim event. We have the sandbags that we have to do as well, the sandbag cleans. So that element is going to be very similar to the dumbbells or the kettlebells that they had to use last year as they're making their round. So I think that it's going to be a very similar showdown, and I cannot wait to see these ladies get after it.
Teams done. Individual competition is next for event number 1 at the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championship. And they are underway. We are starting with 20 sandbag cleans at 100 pounds, followed by a 150-meter swim. The rounds of sandbag cleans will decrease,
Thank goodness.
but the swim will stay the same. And Bill, just looking at this, and we're talking about, well, I say it's a 100-pound sandbag, but it has been raining on these bags all morning.
Well, and we were talking about that. Once we found out what the event was going to be, we really started to feel bad for the athletes that were going to be in the later heats, because in a normal circumstance, as the wet athlete comes out and has to mess with those sandbags, they're going to get more and more soaked. Well, I don't think they planned on it, but it actually took care of itself because they've had all the sandbags out in the rain, so they're all soaked now. So they aren't going to have that increase. But 20, 10, and 5 on the sandbags for the ladies here, and that is a lot of sandbags, a lot of sandbag work. So you can see the tempo at which these ladies are going, but what's going to be important is how hard do you push on the sandbags before you go into the water. So the athletes that do not feel comfortable swimming, they cannot let their heart rate get jacked up, because if that's going to be the case, they're going to be wading in the water and just going super slow as they make their way down to off the beach.
First athlete done, flew through those 20 sandbag cleans in about a minute and 20 seconds. So they do 20 sandbag cleans over the shoulder. They have to stay on the mat to the bottom part of your screen. And then they'll go off for a 150-meter swim. It's the same distance we saw for the team competition, though they only had to do one at a time for a relay. They have 3 of them to do here this morning individually.
So you can see all these ladies as they're making their way down, very collected as they go down to the water. They're not trying to race down to the water. They know that they have a handful of rounds left to go. So you aren't going to win the event by winning the first round, but you need to kind of be able to assess, all right, how hard did I push on the sandbags? How rough am I now going into the water? How hard is my heart beating? How fast is my heart beating? And am I going to be able to hold my breath? And
the answer is fast.
Well, that's what's so great about
if I can really be relative to my experience with the sandbag clean, it is, the heart rate is spiked.
It is spiked.
The breath is labored.
But you can see that all these athletes, they all have such great, physical capacity now that they're able to, the second they have a break in the action, their heart rate really starts to come down. But as these athletes are going down to the water, and then even in the water, you see them adjusting their goggles, you see them making sure their caps are okay, and then they walk in so that when they have the opportunity to swim, they can put their face in the water and swim. The last thing you want is to be in this sort of a position and then have to water polo stroke it all the way around or side stroke or even backstroke it. You want to be able to put your head down and try to control that breathing.
And so we were talking about the sandbag cleans relative to the swim. It's like there's that spike of intensity that comes in from that, and then going into what would be a different kind of intensity with the water, and a lot of that comes with experience.
Well, and we say that every event that they have, a swim event, is those that have the experience are going to swim way more efficient. And you take a good swimmer, they have to actually swim a lot more and a lot harder to get a good workout out of it. If you're a terrible swimmer, you can go 100 meters and get a great workout because you're working so dang hard. So any of the athletes that have any level of experience are going to be well above the rest of the field here. And we saw that last year with Michaela Norman. She did so great in the swim. Samantha Briggs did so great in the swim. Sarah Sigmund's daughter did so great in the swim.
She did, yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see, especially those high-ranking athletes and where they can do and how hard they can really push. Because if you have the abilities, then this is a really interesting race to push rather than trying to just conserve and be, recover here and recover there. They won't do that.
You think there's a bigger separation when you have 3 rounds of 150 or, say, a lump distance like 400 to 500 meters?
Definitely the intensity is going to be higher on the 150 because you have less time that you're actually swimming. If you're a 500-meter swim, you have that time into the water, and then you have all that time on the water. And we know, you know how long it takes for a good swimmer to do 500 meters. 150 meters isn't that big of a deal, and you have the entry and the exit. So in reality, they're really probably only swimming about 100 meters.
Individual event number 1. You see on the left side of your screen, 20 sandbag cleans, 100 pounds for the women as they will start off individual competition first. The men will be coming up second, and then those 150-meter swims with the decreasing weight of the sandbag. We are 5 minutes in time located in the center upper part of your screen. The time cap is 15 minutes. Now, we know these sandbag cleans of 20 will obviously take a lot longer than 10 and 5. However,
fatigue
settles in quite a bit. So you are cutting the number in half. But, again, we said earlier is that swim distance is going to stay the same, and it's not going to get faster as those rounds go on. The swimming part is a pretty tough thing to try to negative split as the rounds go on.
Yeah, I don't, especially with these level of athletes, I don't think that if you had swimmers, they could gauge that a little bit better. I don't think you're going to see that. It's going to be, can I get through it to be able to do some work? And that tempo is going to be the same on all 3 rounds. No one's going to go out super hard on the first round because they know they have 15 more sandbags and 300 more meters to swim. So they aren't going to try to push that just for the fact of winning the first round.
Kalerina Nattori is your first one out of the water in heat number 1. She's over there in lane number 7. And she made very light work of these bags. And she is still doing so, wasting no time. Already 3 reps into the 10 she has to do, as the rest of the field is slowly making their way out of the water for their first 150-meter swim. However, outside of your screen to the right in lane number 7 is Nattori, coming out of Training Think Tank in the United States. Just a handful of reps left for her, and she seems to have a nice mixed capacity between the strength of that sandbag and the skill of the swim.
Oh, man, she just looks so powerful. Look at that. And a lot of times you'll see an athlete trying to break that up into 2 movements. She didn't do that at all.
And what I like to see is the confidence of the athlete jogging to the water. You know, I not think that makes a big deal. And it's not really a time element, but you know the people who have a massive amount of fear of going back, and especially the second round of the swim.
Yeah.
Right, the first round, ignorance is bliss. You're like, oh, this is going to be great. And then you come out of the water for that first 150, like, that did not go like I thought. So you usually see that very slow, gingerly walk to the water. But her rushing to that shows that she has some confidence in the ocean.
Well, and I like the fact, I mean, she showed that all the way as she came to the sandbag, got right on the sandbag. There wasn't a hesitation to let me catch my breath and get going. Just like when she dropped it on the last one, like you said, she was running into the water. So you know she's got the strength. That's not the issue. And in reality, she's got some skill in the water too, because she's not afraid to get in the water and get moving.
Second and third athletes done with their 10 sandbag cleans at 150 pounds as they just enter the water. And it's covered by the flags just barely, but you can see Kalerina Nattori out there about 30 or 40 meters ahead of second and third place. And this is a pretty aggressive time cap. Just kind of looking at it, we are nearly at the 10-minute mark, and this being a 15-minute capped event. There's going to be a lot of people either stuck in the water. There's also a minimum work requirement, and that's 2 swims.
Right. Yeah.
Now, they're not going to be removed from competition, but they'll just get a 0.
Yep.
So if you don't finish the second swim in this particular event within the 15 minutes, you'll get a 0 points for this particular event.
And I think that that's totally valid. I mean, I am glad that a lot of these events are getting very aggressive with that, because guess what? This is a qualifying event to get to the CrossFit Games. And if you can't swim, you have no business going to the CrossFit Games. I mean, I think it was fun to see how many athletes actually got to go to the games last year and experience the games. But if you look at the level of what these athletes should be able to do, this should not even be an issue. Rope climb shouldn't be an issue. Muscle up should not be an issue. Lifting weights should not be an issue. Now it's just a matter of how good and how fast you can go, and that's where these athletes need to be.
Upper middle part of your screen, one athlete making the turn after the first buoy. That is still Kalerina Nattori. Halfway through her second 150-meter swim. And all athletes into their second swim as we have just 5 minutes remaining of individual women's event number 1. And I tell you what, that might be swim number 1. Just coming out of the water. I'm going to say that Shahad Boudebs from the UAE. So she just finished her first swim. And just looking at it, I don't think it's the swim wasn't the issue, but maybe the total volume of bags she had to do in the first set of those 20 cleans.
Well, I mean, it's a lot. You know, I mean, it's a lot. It would be a lot different if it was sets of 5 or even sets of 10. But that's a high number right off the gate, and then have to go do swim. So, you know, just like we said, if you don't have the ability in the water, then not only is the sandbag hard, but it does huge damage to your swim and to your fitness as you're making your way into the water.
There's that head-up side stroke you were talking about earlier.
Here we are again. But again, I think, you know, that could be, you know, okay, check your heart rate, check what you're doing, that's fine, but get your head in the water so you can swim. And a lot of times you'll see athletes, they try to get their feet down to the ground as soon as they can. I get it. But the problem is that if you're walking in the water and the water's at your shoulder or your neck, just start swimming. Just get moving.
So Notori is trying to hang on to her lead.
She should be dolphining right now. This is all that water she's pushing. That's a lot of wasted energy.
And it's going to be tough is that they have 3 minutes to complete the event. They're safe in terms of minimum work requirement. 5 cleans, and she's back in the water.
Right.
And you know, first looking at it, it's like 20 drops to 10, drop to 5. That's actually a very dirty rep scheme. That's a mean rep scheme because 20, 15, 10, the sandbag cleans have a massive impact on the event. When you go 20 cleans to 10 to 5,
yeah,
and you have to go right back into the water.
The swimming now becomes the bigger issue. The first round, that 20 is big, but the 10 and 5, yeah, that makes swimming the big issue.
And I think we'll see the difference there as it'll be a race in the water. Now, we don't know exactly what the rep requirements will be based off the turns on the buoy since it is 3 50-meter sections as Notori is done with her 5 cleans. And she has 2 minutes to complete the swim. That ain't going to happen. I'm just going to throw it out there right now.
Well, no, but I
think at least get maybe.
I think what they do is they'll cap out the distance out. So if she can get out, then that's 1 rep ahead of what everyone else. So I think, honestly, what she needs to do, she's got the 2 minutes. She's got to get out to that buoy line to get that 1 rep because there are going to be a lot of other women, and I'm not even meaning in this heat, but in the next heats where that can play a big issue.
2 women sitting in second and third on the right side. It is Ike Gilfadaughter and Christy Hollard. Christy Hollard just ahead of Gilfadaughter. She's out of Australia. She was in the pink cap with Gilfadaughter behind her as they will enter the water. Now about 90 seconds remaining. Over in lane number 2, you have Haynes Short out of Norway. She's on her final sandbag cleans. But that race is now in the water for your top 3 athletes between Notori, Hollard, and Gilfadaughter. Now, one thing I did notice on Hollard on the way in, she is in that pink cap. She had that nice freestyle stroke coming in, but it was Notori has so much faster than the sandbag cleans where it actually had a massive impact on at least the lead that she's trying to hold on to currently.
Well, and with Colorina, what she doesn't have a good stroke, but she was strong. Like, she just didn't slow down. And, again, you make up your distance on the sandbags and just hold your position on the swim, then you're going to do okay. If you have the fitness ability to be able to do that, you're going to be all right.
Michaela Norman, a lot easier swim for her than she had last year. If you guys watched the Fittest in Dubai documentary that they made, is like that was kind of her first experience in ocean water and waves for Michaela. So she navigated that actually really well last year.
And that was great to be able to see. We talked about that, how these athletes now are getting so good that you don't have to be perfect at it. You can still go and not be all freaked out.
And that will be the 15-minute time cap for heat number 1, women's individual event number 1. And as it stands from here, it looks like Natori will take heat number 1. So heat 1 done, heat 2 coming up. What have we learned so far after watching the first heat on how this is going to play out for the next 2?
Sandbags. You cannot underestimate that 20 reps of those sandbags. You have to be able to pace that to put the time in the water, because where the maximum amount of the time is going to be in this race is going to be in the water. So you need to make sure you can do get the most distance in the water. So conserve a little bit on the sandbags.
So starting off, 20 sandbag cleans, 150-meter swim, and then the 10 swim, and then the 5 in the swim. That's going to be interesting to see when we have these 2 more heats coming up. As heat 1 is done, the score to beat is by Kalarina Natori. We'll see what happens coming up in heat number 2. Better, thank you.
Hey, are you guys there? We just did.
We can.
Are you talking in the heat or no?
First snowfall in Canada, every flight's delayed. So hopefully we make the connection on time.
Well, we're not getting out of Canada that easy. We rushed to get on our flight, sat on the tarmac for about an hour, and then they said it's canceled. Come back tomorrow at noon. Round 2, we're in the Toronto airport again. One more day. This is the finale. This should be it. If this doesn't work, we're not coming. So coming into this competition, there's obviously some expectation that me and a few of the other men, we haven't qualified for the CrossFit Games yet. So this is the opportunity for us to either win this event, or if we don't win, anyone who beats us has already qualified. Therefore, we get the qualifying spot. And I think if I do that here in Dubai, that things will work out. The trip will be well worth it for me.
Heat 2 of the individual women underway for the first event of the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championship as they started with 20 sandbag cleans at the 100 pounds. And like we saw in the first heat, you got some women that can handle the sandbag, but can they handle the ocean swim?
Well, and what's going to be fun about this particular heat is look at the massive women that we have all entering the water at the same time. So that sandbag, that 20 reps, did not really affect at least this field, which is going to make it really exciting for the next field, the next heat. But now we get to see what exactly do these women have in the toolbox as far as like swimming ability. If everyone's getting in the water, now you have a mass water entry. So are you going to get worried if someone kicks you in the face or you get an arm on your shoulder or something? And who's able to make some movement? Who's able to keep their head in the water, not have to keep their head up and breathe, and really put some distance between them and the rest of the field?
A lot more separation going in than you would normally see with a mass start, as you said. So a little bit of ease in transitions from one movement to the next. Now you are entering the water with a highly elevated heart rate and some probably labored breathing for that first 150-meter swim. It started with 20 sandbag cleans at 100 pounds. They'll do a 150-meter ocean swim. You can see in the part of in the screen, they'll swim out to the right to the first buoy, directly across your screen to the left to the second buoy on the left side of your screen, and then back in. That will be your 150-meter ocean swim course. Now, what's nice, and you were talking about earlier, is that there aren't a lot of waves out here this morning as we saw last year at event number 1, and that bodes well for these athletes.
Yeah, it's not that there aren't very many waves. There are no waves. I mean, it's flat. Look at that. If you look at on the water, I would say if we had to give it an actual size, we're talking like 8-inch waves. So that's not going to be any sort of an issue for any of these athletes. And we talked about Michaela Norman last year when she said on the Fitness in Dubai video that she had never swam in waves before. These athletes now have such a great physical capacity that they can adapt, one, but two, they are not going to be so blasted that lack of oxygen is going to be an issue anymore. So for a lot of these ladies, as they were moving in, we saw how fast they moved on the sandbags. They get in the water, they're able to recover quickly, and that's really going to make that race real exciting. It does come down to the swim in this event. It just does. It's not a sandbag event, even though that first 20 reps are terrible. But this is how much, what do you have capacity-wise in the water?
And I think the terrible part is actually that 10 to 5 drop from the sandbag cleans. 10 is still a good number of sandbag cleans.
Yeah.
It's not going to take nearly as long as, say, the swim would. But when they're coming out of the water for that second swim, doing 5 cleans and going back, I think that will be the hardest kind of back-to-back they'll have in this event. I think it's designed for that.
Yeah, the number is short, so you don't have the excuse to, I can slow down. Like, it's just 10. Grab the sandbag and get moving and get yourself back in the water. Same thing with the 5. If you make it to that has to be 5. That has to be 5 fast reps, not I'm trying to check the box off like the first 20.
Early leader coming out after the first swim, just under the 5-minute mark. We have a 15-minute time cap. We had no athletes finish this event in heat number 1 as Notori was just into her 3rd swim. And you can see on the left side of your screen the individual event, and they are finished with the first 150-meter swim, now moving to 10 sandbag cleans. Now, we said on paper, it says 100 pounds, and that is Julie Hogard out of Denmark, a beachfront community. We were talking earlier, it's like, in fairness to a lot of these athletes, so it's like, oh, I've never swam in waves, or what are you doing? It's like, well, unless you live by the beach or you take those training trips, if you're in a landlocked state or country, it's not the easiest of access to get to.
Wave pools only do so much.
Hogard finally has some company. And as they come on, she will walk back off. And that is Emily Rolfe sitting in second. Now, Bill, we were saying earlier about these 100-pound sandbag cleans. I'm going to put the air quotes in. because it has been pouring rain all morning, and obviously we've had one heat already to go, and that drastically affects the weight and the makeup of the sandbag.
This is not your light, fluffy sand that you're used to having, that you fill up these bags with. It's weighed down, water heavy.
I mean, the sand really does act like a sponge in a way.
Oh, 100%.
And so now you're adding water to this 100-pound bag. So
I mean, it's easily
it's
easily 108 pounds, 110 pounds maybe, just with the water. Just because not that there's. And the hard part is that you don't really know exactly, one, how much it weighs and how much does my bag weigh versus your bag, just with the way the setup is. I do like the environmental element of that. You just kind of get what you get.
Even the playing field as well earlier, because we were talking, one of the concerns we had coming in is that the bags would become waterlogged after the heats go.
Yeah, so you end up being, if you're one of the better, quote-unquote, better athletes coming in with a higher ranking, you get the heavier bag. Congratulations.
But to that point is that they've been getting rained on all morning.
Yeah.
So that kind of took that out of the equation.
Which is great. I mean, that is a good thing.
One
So
thing
now
we had
everyone's
we got to
getting
dodge,
screwed
yeah.
equally now.
Athletes making their way into the water for the second time. No one finished this event in heat number 1. In heat number 1, it was Kalarina Notori that got to the first buoy of the third swim. So she got about 50 meters in. Now we're not exactly sure how they're going to separate the scoring once they get out to the swim, because after looking at the first heat, I feel like we're going to have a lot of athletes stuck on that third 150-meter swim for the day. That's a tight time cap.
No, it really is. But again, we haven't had a field where the swimmers really got to showcase. The swimmers, the quote-unquote swimmers that we had last year in the swim events, are all coming in the next heat. So those athletes will be able to push the swim. And like we said, it's those last 2 rounds, how fast are you able to go in your swim, not how fast can you do the sandbags, because that almost, after that first set of 20, those are almost kind of negligible.
We've already finished 20 sandbag cleans, 1 150-meter swim, 10 sandbag cleans to start round number 2. You can see on the back side of your screen, most of the field is back of the pack, and you have your 2 leaders. After the first round, it was Julie Hogard and Emily Rolfe. And that's a good stroke.
That's a great stroke. Nice and even. You can see her rotating her shoulders. And for open water, you want to be able to bring your head up just a touch. You see that? And she could immediately put her head back down. Very nice stroke. And then look at this. Comfortable knowing that she can swim up to a particular depth. Not like, oh, my gosh, where's the floor so I can start walking. She's comfortable in the water, and that was awesome.
And it's the massive advantage you're going to have by having that swimming background, and she for sure has it. That is not I just learned how to do this stroke. That is years of training kind of a stroke.
So what, to your point, we were talking about how, who's going to be able to finish it, that it's going to be a tight time cap. She's got 5 reps of these sandbags, not a big deal. She now has just under 5 minutes of time to be able to get that done. So I think she will be able to make this time.
Hogard working over her last clean, and so she'll be back in the water before the second place individual comes out for their second swim. And she has a little over 4.5 minutes to make the swim. Julie Hogard on the right side of your screen, entering the water for the last time. She'll go on to her third and final 150-meter ocean swim. And if you look on the left side of your screen, that is how far she has moved herself ahead of this heat.
And just so, showing that confidence in the water was huge. And then 30 seconds on the bag for those sandbags. So she wasn't pushing that 5 really fast, was able to do that in 30 seconds, got herself back in the water. So she had She has 4 minutes to make that last swim. And if you look at what she's done up to that point, it took her 10 minutes to do 30 sandbags and 300-meter swim. So she's got right in that realm to be able to finish this event.
And it's not a matter of really if, but what the time is going to be for Julie Haugard. And we have some company on the sandbag cleans in lane number 4. Might be Agnès Manon out of Belgium. No, I think it's still Rolf, so that's Rolf in lane number 5. So Rolf is still sitting in second place. So Elmini Rolf out of Pure Pain Strength and Conditioning in second, but that's all she's fighting for at the moment. As the rest of the field from 3rd to 10th is pretty all packed up in the back. Three athletes making their way out. You got to go between the flags. So that was part of the rules in terms of your entrance and exit. So over in lane number 3, right side of your screen, you have Taylor Howe. She's in a 5 sandbag race with places 3 through 5. And there's that quick turnaround as they'll have just 2 minutes.
And this is important for them because they have to make it out to that buoy line to be able to do what was done in the first heat, if they want to be able to have that. Now, you're going to have an athlete right next to you trying to push to get to that point.
We have athletes still making their way out of the second swim, but on the left side of your screen coming in for her 3rd and final with 90 seconds to go is Julie Haugard from Denmark. And, Bill Wertheim is like, how are all the quote unquote swimmers going to do? There's no swimmers really in the last heat. They're good at swimming.
They're good at swimming.
This is someone who there's some semblance of swimming background.
No, they're 100%.
But now you're looking at the clock, and if she's right around that 15 to 14:30 with such a good swim technique and stroke, how are those last athletes going to fare? Because, I mean, that's a good swim, and they don't have that swim. And maybe they do. Maybe they do.
But it's not a matter. I think a lot of swimmers, if they have the stroke, they try to relax and recover during that element.
And in heat number 2, the first athlete will finish women's individual event number 1 at an unofficial time of 14:17. It is Julie Haugard.
Yeah, that was a great swim. But I think the difference is going to be in that final heat with those top athletes they're used to pushing all elements. So you have someone like Samantha Briggs. I wouldn't call her a swimmer, but she does well in swim events. Same thing with Sarah Sigmundsdottir. I wouldn't call her a swimmer, but she's going to push. And the fact is they're going to move it.
Reluctantly good versus technique.
Yeah. All right. I like that. That'll work.
15-minute time cap is reached for Heat 2 for individual women's event number 1. As all athletes at least made it back into the water for their 3rd swim. However, they will be safe in terms of minimum work requirement, which was 2 full swims. But the time to beat was set by Julie Haugard coming out of Denmark. And I believe they're going to have to make them at least finish the swim person to determine the order of which they were at.
Oh, there you go. That explains it. Yeah. She's very, very smooth.
But in terms of the unofficial time and time cap, this will just kind of be an order of operation play. So it will be Julie Haugard, whose time of 14:17 good for first overall as Rolf is coming in. Now she's not going to get a time, but in terms of place finishing and seeding, that'll be good for her.
That's one of the issues with having an event where you can finish in the water like that is she pushed, and she didn't necessarily need to have that push. So there's energy that was wasted for the rest of the day or for upcoming events.
And Heat 2 is officially at a close. Heat number 3, the third and final heat. Your top athletes coming in to the weekend for the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championship will be coming up, and they will be all chasing the time set by Julie Hogard, unofficially of 14:17.
Okay.
Maybe I can ask Sarah if she has one.
We can ask another. Should we try this one now?
Yes.
It's so touchy. I want to try. Mental alert. Explosive energy. And it's that performance if
Just that. Okay, thank you.
You got the wrong one on there. I have my back to go. Yeah, nah, sometimes they pop out. You got the wrong.
Og de grimme der shorts. Hvad?
Hey, there's still an open mic somewhere. It's blaring. It's dropped or something.
third and final heat is underway for the individual women's event number 1. We've had 2 heats down. Only one athlete has finished, and that's a time of 14:17. And as you see behind us, the third and final heat with your top athletes currently underway for their first heat of the weekend.
Well, and I'm excited to see what this one is because of the level of athletes won and the names that we have. Sarah Sigmundsdottir, who did so well in the swim event last year. Samantha Briggs, same thing. Corinne Frey, same thing. We also have Alessandra Pacelli also does well in the swim event. So this is, and they're all strong women. So it's going to be really fun to see just how hard they can push in the water with that little sandbag twist.
About all the women are done with their first 20 sandbag cleans. It was a 100-pound sandbag. Now this is one of the fastest 20 cleans we've seen, right about a minute 10. Usually it's about a minute 30 in the first 2 heats. Unofficial time to beat, top part of your screen, 14:16. Set by Julie Haggard out of Denmark in heat number 2. And I think that's going to be a very hard time to beat because she looked very good in the water.
Yeah, you know, we talked about how important it is to have that confidence and that ability in the water and what that can do for you. The only difference that I think that she has is she didn't push the swim. And maybe that was to be able to get to the sandbag and work the sandbag, but I didn't see her attacking the swim. She looked more comfortable. Now, granted, in most CrossFit events, if you're a swimmer, you don't have to push the swim. I mean, you make up so much distance just by being efficient. But in this particular heat, we have so many athletes that are going to fight tooth and nail all the way through on every piece. So it's going to be a tough one. That's a good time.
And I think that's the advantage of coming in the third heat is that you can get some feedback in terms of what is actually the pacing of this workout. It's different than any event we've really ever seen. And that drop from 20 cleans to 10 to 5, as we were talking earlier in the first 2 heats, is just a massive game changer in terms of going from your second 150-meter swim just to 5 sandbag cleans at the end to your third and final one. And where it is, you should actually push.
You're right. And it's like that last set of 5 sandbags, it's not even – that's not the element. We're just breaking up a 300-meter swim is what you're doing. So you're doing 2 in and outs basically. And those – I mean, for most, even if you're talking in a lifeguard, life-saving sort of competition setting, that's the hardest part. The in and the out, you know, is not swimming. So you can't just rely solely on the swimming.
Three athletes making the final turn on the left side of your screen. So this 150-meter course, you can see right up front, they'll enter the water between the flags on the right, swim to the far right buoy, to the left and back in, about 50 meters per length. So it's this little triangle from start to finish.
See, now, watch how these ladies are doing this. Now, you'll see them, they're all staying pretty flat. Decent strokes. You can see where their hands are entering the water. Good roll of their body. They will pop their head up to see what's going on, to see where the direction is, but I don't see them slowing down. Now, you will see in most open water swims a little shorter stroke, just because you have the up and down of the water, so it's not as pretty as pool swimming. But the tempo at which these women are swimming, the way they're swimming, the way they're looking in the water, the way they're looking ahead, I like the race. This is going to make it really exciting for these next 2 rounds.
I believe that's Sarah Sigmundsdottir on the left in the silver cap in second. Waiting to see who your current leader is coming out. It'll be about 450.
That's a swimmer. That's a swimmer. Look at that. Look at that confidence.
So that'll one of the first right around the 5-minute mark. And that's about where we saw Julie after her first round. Sigmundsdottir will exit the water in second. And it is Karin Frey, we believe, in lane number 7 in first place. Sigmundsdottir in second. I think Frey actually might be in third. And it might be Emma Tall in lane number 8 ahead of Frey, and that is what it is. So Emma Tall sitting in first, Sigmundsdottir in second, and Karin Frey in third, as Sigmundsdottir will enter the water. Frey coming up just behind her. So Emma Tall out of Sweden is your current leader in heat number 3.
Which is, I mean, you look at the way she's entering the water, the way she's coming out of the water, and from where we were sitting, it's hard to see where they are on the floor. That's why we got a little name change there. But Emma Tall, her swimming skill is unreal. But what's even more impressive than that, Sarah Sigmundsdottir, right on her tail. So we know how strong she is. If you watched any of the sanctional events, even last weekend when she was in the Filthy 150 and she qualified for the games there, winning that event, already had it out of the open, but that's okay too. But we saw what she did on the sandbags, and she crushed the sandbag event there. So again, if you have a sandbags, that's not an issue. It comes down to the swim, and Sarah looks great on the swim.
I think people maybe not remember this, but Sarah in her youth, she said swimming was the one sport she did the longest, which was like 6 to 8 months. But that 6 to 8 months of training is still a massive advantage in length of period of time. It's just getting the skill and the comfortability is a massive advantage.
If you talk to a CrossFitter now and you say, "Hey, I need you to work on your swimming for 6 to 8 months," they would think like, "Oh my God, that's forever. How am I supposed to put in all that much time?" So the fact that she did that, even at a young age, there's a little bit of muscle memory with that.
Making the first turn, Emma Tall still holding on to that lead over the rest of the field in heat number 3. Look at this. Tall moving into her last turn. I believe that's Gabriella Magala maybe making her way to the water for the second round. Now the minimum work requirement is 2 full completed swims. Now there is no penalty in terms of moving forward in the competition as a minimum work requirement. It's just you'll get a score of 0 regardless of where you finished along with the rest of the pack. And we've seen some athletes struggle by just getting through that second swim.
Yeah, but I'm very happy to say that, there's been a drastic difference, a drastic amount of improvement in swimming ability across the board.
Emma Tall in the center part of your screen, holding on to that edge against Sarah Sigmundsdottir and Karin Frey. That's Lori Cunha out of Brazil, making her way into the water for her second swim.
So with Emma, same thing. You can see, this is what we talked about before. Now, Julie had that great swim stroke, but she didn't really push it. I was watching the time frame she had when she came out of the water. She was about 10:45 when she finished the second round. So here we are. Emma is about a minute ahead.
She is really pushing the pace.
And she's
on those
pushing
swims.
the pace on the swim, and that's the difference. If you have the ability, if you can move the sandbag, fine. But the last 2 rounds is a swim, and you got to push that, not just rest and recover because you know you're going to beat all the other CrossFitters that just learned how to swim.
Emma Tall outside. Back to her third and final set of sandbag cleans. 5 reps total, and she'll move back into her third and final 150-meter swim. And, Bill, when you talk about comfortability in the water, proficiency as a swimmer, being a swimmer, you can be exhausted. It's okay to actually push the sandbags because it is not going to take away from your swim.
No. I mean, and she can literally recover on the swim because there aren't waves that you have to deal with. Once she gets in the water, she's going to be fine. So she could even handle a handful of meters, 10, 20, 30 meters, and just rest while she's recovering.
Tall entering the water as Sigmundsdottir, Karin Frey, and Sam Briggs exiting the water for their second swim. They'll move into 5 sandbag cleans. and back into the water for their third and final 150-meter swim as Sarah Sigmundsdottir is done with her 5. She made very quick. She didn't even take her goggles off.
No.
And I mean, for 5 reps, what's the point?
No, exactly. But this is what's interesting. So we saw that great swim earlier by Julie Hogard. 10:45 she got to that round. Sarah Sigmundsdottir finished the sandbags at 11 minutes. So she's right in that realm. Great position, great timing for her to be able to finish this event as well.
Briggs into the water behind Frey and Sigmundsdottir. Jamie Green has exited for her second swim. Green, one of those 4 athletes that were in contention last year for the first place position. Green has actually won this event a few years back at the Dubai CrossFit Championship and had her most successful year at the CrossFit Games last year, finishing on the podium.
Oh, yeah, she did. She had an unbelievable year last year. I honestly was expecting to see her up a little higher in the field here on this swim event because she won from the area. She's around the water, and 2, she did really well in the swims that have been presented, like the swim last year. So I wasn't really expecting her to be sitting in that 5th, 6th position.
12-minute mark as we have 3 minutes until we reach that 15-minute cap. It's going to be close for Green as she can get all the way around in 3 minutes.
Now, the idea here, which you see this athlete doing, is sort of the dolphin, but go all the way down to the ground. She right now is worried about breathing rather than about moving, and that's the difference.
And that is Alessandra Pacelli finishing her second swim. 5 quick sandbag cleans at 100 pounds. Oh, you can see the weight of that bag is...
Do you hear it slapping the ground? Splat.
As we are approaching the 13-minute mark, our eyes are going to be on the left side of your screen is when we will see Emma Tall make that final turn. Unofficial time is 14:16, set in heat number 2 by Julie Hogard. And that is Gabriella Magala as she's done with her second swim. She's in lane number 4. Our eyes are going to be on when Emma Tall is going to make her way out of the water. And there she is, center part of your screen, 13:45. She's about 10, 20 meters away from the shoreline. It is going to be pretty close. 14:16, unofficial time to beat, set by Julie Hogard. Coming up to the 14-minute mark. Clock will stop when she gets to her mat. It's going to be a race up the beach. Can Emma Tall get the time to beat? And it's going to be close. Unofficially, it might be enough. We're going to say about 14:14, but again, that all depends on the official clock. So we're talking about a 2-second difference between your top 2 athletes in this specific event. Now the race for second is on. We saw it between Karin Frey, Sarah Sigmundsdottir, and Samantha Briggs. That group of 3 is in the middle part of your screen. On the left side, you can see Laura Conad trying to get out of the water. That's her second swim, so she's safe under that 15-minute cap. But with just 3 seconds remaining, that will be the 15-minute cap. As you can see, Sigmundsdottir and Briggs side by side trying to get out of the water. And this will matter in terms of finish placing overall. But it will be Emma Tall, who unofficially should take women's individual event number 1. Sigmundsdottir's got to her mat, followed by Briggs.
And what's hard is the athletes, they can't hear that whistle. They got all, I mean, you can see the cap on over their ears. They got all that water. The heart rate's going. They're breathing hard. They don't hear that whistle. That's why they're all racing. The race is over. They don't know that. We know that. But they just keep on pushing until they get to the mat because then they know officially they're done.
Karin Frey is done, so she'll get third in the heat. Sorry, fourth in the heat. Should be good enough for fifth overall. The only athlete to finish this in the first two heats was Julie Hogard. And we'll have to wait till the official times come out, as her and Emily Tall were only separated by a matter of seconds. But Bill, like you said, it was close between that heat 2 time, but I mean, I'll say some props out to Hogard.
Oh my gosh, huge.
You know, she didn't really have anybody else out there to push her. At least Tall had some semblance of what it took.
Yeah, and in the fact, like, she lost a minute in there somewhere because she was a minute ahead, unless what happened was she just pushed too hard too early and then was trying to play makeup, whereas, you know, Julie kind of flipped it a little bit and was able to, I don't know if she actually made a negative split out of it, but she definitely didn't lose that much time, the fact that it came in so close.
As the women wrap up their first individual event of the weekend, it's going to be a long weekend. We got 4 days of competition coming. As we're waiting for our final athletes to get out of the water, we will turn from the women to the men. Individual and men from the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championships is coming up next. Few athletes left out in the water. Now they are safe in terms of minimum work.
I'm so impressed. It was like
It'd be really nice if they'd tell us beforehand. Good job.
Ahead early on in the event and stay ahead for what we think is the event win, at least for now. I mean, tell me what it was like being out there in the open waters here in Dubai.
I really enjoyed it. My background is swimming. Just pool swimming, so not open water, but I love the water, so yeah, just fun.
It definitely showed. Now, I know that you have a lot of individual experience. We've seen you at the games once, but you've also gone team previously at the Filthy 150. So what is it like being an individual versus working as a team?
Completely different. Yeah, I really enjoy both. It's just, yeah, very, very different.
Do you know going forward what you think you want to stick with or how you want to get to games?
Well, the official leaderboard for the games, I'm above the line, so I'm probably going individual if that's how it turns out.
Great. Well, good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, girl. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. Sorry for the delay. We'll have more.
Women are done, and now it's the men's turn for their individual event number 1. This is heat number 1 underway. The event is the same except the weight. The weight's going to bump up for the men to 150 pounds, and the women had 100.
Well, and this is what we've learned so far is it's not about round one or those 20 sandbags. I take that back. It is the 20 sandbags, but how hard do you want to push the 20 sandbags? Because where the race really happens is in the last 2 rounds of the swim. So you need to make sure that you don't go too far into that red zone to where you're not able to recover, because you need to be able to push the 10, which is just basically kind of a drop in the bucket, and the 5 of the sandbags. It's the swim. You got to be able to do that swim.
It's starting off the 20 sandbag cleans at 150 pounds, and they'll make their way to a 150-meter swim. One athlete we have our eye on in heat number 1 is one that actually did very well in the swim events last year, and that's Alex Kotoulas out of Greece.
Yeah, he just crushed the swim last year. Did so well on it. But I want to see if that sandbag is going to be detrimental to what he's able to do in the swim.
Usually we see some of the bigger, stronger athletes make their way to the water first, and then it's quite a tale of 2 skill sets, sandbag cleans with 150 and then an ocean swim.
Yeah, and I already is starting to see some of the athletes like Tola Marcinano, he's so strong, isn't necessarily a great swimmer, so you have to be able to, I get you need to push your strengths, but are you really is it going to be really worth it to be the first in the water out of your 20 sandbag throws and then just get smashed because you're pushing too hard?
And at the 2-minute mark, we just saw Kotoulas finish his 20 sandbag clean, so he's well behind the rest of the field, although he was a very formidable swimmer last year in the event.
Yeah, he did great. And even with the last year with the swim, there was the sort of the lifeguard where you had to bring your lifeguard tube with you, and then the other one was the double kettlebells. He was able to move that weight well. So I don't think that it shouldn't affect him too much, because once he gets in the water, he's very strong. So I'm hoping that the strategy that he's employing is, you guys go ahead and race the first 20. I'll catch you on the swim, and then we can play when it comes to the 10 and 5, but it's about the swim.
Because that sandbag dramatically drops off after the first round. It's not 20-15-10 where you have 25 left to do in the second half. It's a 10-5 drop down. So the swim becomes much more important in the second and third round than it does on the first round.
Well, and the swim is basically 2+ times the amount of time, even on the first set. So if we're talking 1:30 for the athletes doing the sandbag, for the first set of the sandbag, and the swim is almost 3 minutes, or it's 3 minutes plus, yeah, it's about the swim. So it really comes down to that. And you're right. Just get through that first set of 20. Then you can deal with the 10 and 5 after that.
And one thing we did notice is that it is a very tight time cap in this event. We only had actually 2 women finish the event under 15 minutes, and that was between Julie Hogard and Emma Tall. And they were only separated by 2 seconds unofficially.
If
so,
that.
yeah, maybe. So hopefully we see some of the same tight races on the men's side as event number 1 for the individual men for the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championships is underway. With me all weekend will be Bill Grundler. Nikki Braster will be joining us later in the competition. And we'll be with you guys the next 4 days of competition here in Dubai.
Now, it looks like we're getting a pretty decent spread between these athletes on the swim, and generally I'll say that their swim stroke isn't too bad. It's not glaring problems. However, even if you look at your leader, the way he's swimming, he's forcing it a lot. So he's moving, but there's a lot. I don't know how long he's going to be able to keep that swim stroke up as he starts to get tired. He's making it work on this first round, but this is round 1.
Right.
And just like in every CrossFit event, it really doesn't matter if you win round 1. You don't get any extra points for it. So what kind of damage is he doing to the rest of his swims? Because now after this, he has a broken up 300-meter swim, and that's really the only way else to look at it. The sandbags are there, but they're negligible.
Approaching the 5-minute mark. Time is in the center upper part of your screen. 15-minute time cap for event number 1. And as we saw in the first heat, I think athletes getting used to what the transition from those cleans to the ocean swim is going to be. Now, one benefit for these athletes is that if you look at the water, it's near glass-like conditions. If you're talking about what you would like to see in an ocean swim, these are the conditions you're hoping for if you're not comfortable in the water.
Yeah.
If you are, I want madness.
Oh,
I want
man.
as much madness as I can because I'll be fine.
The more the better. In fact, the bigger waves, if you have swimming ability, you want the bigger waves. If it's flat like this, I just want to go water skiing.
Now out of the water first, in lane number 9, it is Kyle Bernier. And there is Alex Kotulis.
So look at the distance he made up
in
the swim.
How much time he made up.
Yep.
He was one of the last guys in the water by nearly a minute.
Yeah, so the fact that he's in second right behind Kyle, like that's a great position for him to be in because he's not nearly as tired as the other athletes that were really pushing that sandbag. Because now it all comes down to the swim. There'll be 10 more sandbags, okay, but it's the water time.
He might fall back on the pack, at least in this heat, maybe not. But obviously we have 2 more heats to go. We have 3 total heats of individual men. Jason Smith on the right.
Well, and look at the tempo between him and Alex. Alex in the middle, Jason on the right there. Look how fast Jason Smith is moving that sandbag. Alex Kotulis is just resting. He's totally resting on that sandbag.
And the thing, too, is like it says 150 pounds on paper, but these
plus.
It doesn't look like it now because it is absolutely gorgeous out here in Dubai, but it was pouring rain all morning on these sandbags. And if you guys know anything about how sand actually logs water, I mean, you're adding 10, 20 more pounds to that bag, and that's a massive difference, especially when you see the size of Kotulis versus these other athletes. Kyle Bernier out of CrossFit Vitality. He is still holding on to that lead, but with only 10 sandbag cleans, Kotulis has an opportunity to pass him if he can get to the water quickly in the next 1 or 2 lifts. Jason Smith is done with his second round. He was 3rd out of the water behind Kotulis.
And he really pushed the sandbags. I mean, he was literally doing 2 sandbag reps to every one of Alex's.
Tola Moraquino out of Invictus Boston, one of the strongest individual athletes in the field.
Period. He's a beast. Gosh, he's a beast.
I cannot wait to see that man move some weight later in the competition. Early leaders so far in heat number 2, Kyle Bernier out of CrossFit Vitality, followed by Jason Smith, Tola Moraquino, and Alex Kotulis finally making his way to the water. So we'll have to see if he can make up the ground that he lost like he did on the first swim.
Well, so this is going to be interesting. He's about 30 seconds behind the rest of the field that's in the water, 30, 40 seconds. So if he's able to make that up, then again, when we go to 5 sandbags, no big deal. I mean, granted, it'll be his rest time, and he really will be able to push that swim and make up a ton of time on the rest of the field.
We were speaking earlier is that, you know, having multiple rounds of swim is something that isn't often done.
Right.
If you're not a great swimmer, you're not getting faster or able to keep the same pace. Whereas if you have that experience, and specifically if you have a swimming background, it is very, very easy to keep the same pace.
Oh, yeah, totally.
For 150 meters.
Absolutely. I mean, a swimmer can hold their tempo lap after lap after lap after. They know where to go. It's kind of like a runner, the same type of thing. You get a marathon runner or a runner, they know their tempos and how to hold it.
And that's the big thing is that a lot of athletes that have that experience is like there is no clock out here where they're not really able to see. So if you have that innate ability to understand what a pace is supposed to feel like is a huge advantage. It's like, I swear I was trying hard. It's like, yeah, but you weren't.
Yeah.
You were trying hard, but you were going slow.
But you were going really slow. I really don't care how hard you were trying. You were just going slow.
I try really hard when I try to deadlift. However, it's still not a lot of weight.
And look at Alex, the way he is moving up behind Kyle. Now, that's the difference in that swimming stroke we were talking about. Kyle is fighting through the water, whereas Alex is really being efficient through the water, and that's where he's able to make up all the distance. So he's passed up Jason and everybody else that passed him up. You guys have your heavy man stuff. That's cool. I'm going to stay in the water, and now it's my turn to move. And he is doing – look at that. He's going to catch him on this turn.
Left side screen, Kyle Bernier. He's just made his second and final turn, but Alex Kotulis. And you see these two athletes. Now, I'll give it to Bernier. He's actually hanging on. He's doing very well for the skill set he has coming in with because Kotulis was one of those athletes we thought that could possibly win an event like this.
Yeah.
Now, we do see him struggle quite a bit with the sandbag, but what's coming up is his kind of a round. We've gone from 20 to 10. Now there will only be 5 sandbag cleans before that third and final 150-meter swim.
Well, even as of right now, you know, he hasn't passed him. He's right on his heels. He hasn't passed him yet, but more importantly, he's made up 40 seconds. He was 40 seconds before he got off the sandbags when all those other guys were already in the water.
Now we are approaching the 11-minute mark. Now what they're also running out of is time.
Yeah.
Time to complete the event in total because it is a 15-minute time cap. And so we're talking earlier about how are the swimmers going to do really well, or are the strong guys going to do really well, or a combination of both. And what we've seen on this aspect is that how fast Kotulis is in the water, but his sandbags are so slow that he actually might not finish this event.
Which is very
within
true.
the time cap.
And that's why I think it's interesting to see, again, we are reiterating how important the swim is. We see that. When we get to some of the more top athletes where you have your swimmers, when we have Jonne Koski, who's a national swimmer from Finland and has the strength to move the sandbag, or you have someone like Fikowski who's incredible with the sandbags and has done really well in all the swim events, plus that long albatrossian reach that he has, long legs for high stepping, he's going to push the tempo as well. So you're not going to see someone like Alex who is going to rest at the sandbags. It's not going to happen.
3 minutes remaining in heat number 1. Kotulis to his bag first, so he has passed Bernier. But as we said before, the time it's taking him to get through those sandbags. So we spoke a lot to the fact that this is a swim-style event. However, we don't want to downplay how tough these sandbag cleans actually are.
Right. Well, I mean, because what it does in the beginning, it's setting that heart rate up, spiking that heart rate up, really demanding your body to pull oxygen to those big muscles, which guess what? You're going to be holding your breath when you swim. So now you are at a double deficit of oxygen. So that's why it's important for the swimmers. The strong guys, they have to push here because they're going to get crushed in the water.
Who's going to have to push, especially on this last swim, is Kotulis. So he is done with his 5 sandbag cleans and back in the water, but he only has 2 minutes remaining as Bernier in the backside of your screen is done. Moraquinho is into his last 5 sandbag cleans. But our eyes are going to be on Kotulis as if he is going to be able to make that 150-meter swim in under 2 minutes. Now, if you talk about just a straight-up swim, that can be done. That 150-meter swim in less than 2 minutes, that can absolutely be done. But not after 35 sandbag cleans, already 300 meters of ocean swimming. So there is a possibility, but it really kind of matters is the speed that Kotulis really truly has in a top-end level and having that endurance coming in after everything he's been through.
Well, now we want to see if he can be able to push it. Does he know time-wise where he is? Does he know that he only has 2.5 minutes to try to get around, or 3 minutes to try to get around that buoy set out in the water? That's going to dictate, one, whether he has a chance of doing it, but two, how hard does he push? We saw that he pushed hard on the swim earlier to make up the distance, but now is he going to be able to not push to make up distance, but now is he going to race to try to finish?
45 seconds left to go. For part of your screen, you can see Kotulis taking the first turn. I think it's safe to say we won't have any athletes finish in heat number 1. We have a stellar lineup coming up in the next 2 heats, especially that final heat when you're looking at names like Fikowski, Koski. I think there was a time where Koski had won every swim event at the CrossFit Games that were programmed that he was in contention with.
Yeah.
And then Jordan Troyan came around and kind of had something to say about that a little bit to himself. 5 seconds remaining for that 15-minute cap. You can see in the back left part of your screen, Kotulis is just getting into that second and final buoy. So no one will finish in heat number 1. We have 2 more heats remaining as Alex Kotulis got about a 100 meters into that third and final swim. As athletes will make their way around and come in for that second heat will go. So men's second heat for the 2000 Dubai CrossFit Championships will be coming up next.
Yeah, it was good. Not bad. Thank goodness I didn't have to do a third swim. I'll find out what's going on.
Heat 1 down. Second heat, he's coming up shortly. No one had finished in the first heat. Alex Koutoulas was our best hope, we would say, in terms of the ability in the water, but it proved that his ability on the sandbag was his Achilles heel.
Yeah, we know how that this is a swim event. You have to be able to push the swim, but what Alex did is he made up all his time on the swim and rested so long on the sandbag. So as we get to these more heavy hitter athletes, and in this particular heat, I'm looking at Brent Fikowski to see what he's able to do, because we know that he has done great in swimming. I've seen him smash sandbag work cleans before, so he put those two together. What kind of special thing is he going to be able to do? And I think, the fact, I'm just glad, one, to see him here in Dubai, because we've never seen him here at this competition. Coming off the Open and see what was going to happen there. But this, I think, is going to be a great opening event for him, showcasing the things that he can do.
And if you're looking for Brent Fikowski, he is going to be in lane number 3, so third from the right side of your screen in the black cap. And these athletes are taking individual event number 1, 20 sandbag cleans, followed by a 150-meter swim, and then we'll drop to 10 and 5. That swim will stay the same. And, Bill, you're right. Brent Fikowski is definitely going to be one of those athletes that is going to put up one of the top times, if not the best time, of all these athletes here in the field. Now, he is in heat number 2. Now, usually that's, I would say, a disadvantage in terms of they get to see how fast you went. But there's no clock out here. Right. It's really hard to gauge where you are with the other athletes. So he's not really hindered, I feel, as much as he would be on, say, like a competition floor setting with a particular event.
No, this is a lot different because it's really hard to see where everyone is anyway. So you really have to run your own race regardless. I think that even if he gets out in front of people or if he's chasing someone, that will help. But I think generally speaking, we know what he does. He's a strategist. He likes to strategize. He knows exactly how fast every single rep is going to take. He knows exactly how fast he's going to move from the sandbags down to the water and what he needs to do in the water. And he's been setting this up the whole time. So if we watch where he is right now, he still is not pushing on the sandbags. Very cool and collected. I'm hoping that he's going to be able to rely on his swim skill to get him moving, basically like what Alex Catullus did earlier in the last heat. But he can't wait too long, just based off of how important that we've seen what the sandbags can do if you don't push them.
And it's a decently paced swim, and one thing with the bags is that once you finish your first 20, you're over halfway done.
Totally.
With the total reps on the sandbag cleans, only having to do 15 total spread out over the next 2 rounds. Now you see Brent Fikowski on the right has already made up a substantial amount of ground on the first few athletes. I mean, they had a 30-second lead going into that. And you would think that would be stretched out to almost about a 40 to 50 meter
by the
distance.
time you actually start swimming?
By the time they start swimming, but Fikowski is churning up a lot of ground. And there's to the strategy that comes into play is that if you can handle the bags without getting yourself over fatigued, like Catullus unfortunately had to deal with, you can really push the swim harder once you get to the water.
Yeah.
Especially in that second round.
Well, I mean, and we've seen elements of that before. It's like you have to figure out what is going to be more important in the race. Is it that you are trying to be the first one in the water? Well, if that's your goal, okay, great, then push the sandbags. But other than that, why are you pushing the sandbags? Because this is not a sandbag event. You can go slow on it, absolutely. But it's not a sandbag event. And what I like to see is the way Brent was swimming, making up the distance. You can see, I mean, that shot that we had with the 5 athletes in the water, it all came down to, I mean, he was making up that distance because of how clean his stroke was. Everyone else was struggling with their head up. They were breathing hard because of how hard they pushed the sandbags. Brent did not.
Coming around the final turn, Brent Fikowski has moved up into second place.
Beautiful stroke.
Again, making up nearly 30 seconds of time in a 100-meter stretch.
Look at the difference between what the style looks like. Brent Fikowski, head is down, a glance up, but nice, smooth, just off of his shoulder. I mean, that's a flailing stroke. I mean, he's moving. I can't tell who that is from here. He's moving, but, I mean, that takes a lot of energy to do that, to keep your head up that high.
We're coming into the final 50 meters of the first 150-meter swim. They started with 20 sandbag cleans. We'll say at quote 150 pounds because those, just looking at those things hit the floor. There's been some added weight to that because of the early morning rains we had.
Look at Brent Fikowski. It's a slow, relaxed stroke. He's using the length of his arms to really get as much water being pulled as he can. And he's saving energy here. If you look at those 2 athletes, the athlete on the left is the one that's using so much energy. So coming out of the water, he's going to be really tired. Brent, nice and easy, nice and relaxed.
Top 2 athletes coming into the final stretch here, and they swam that all the way into shore. Usually you see them pop up a little earlier, so Fikowski made up a lot of ground. Now, to his benefit, he's got half the number of cleans left to do. And that's Lazar Dukic out of Serbia. Another athlete that made a name for himself last year at the Dubai CrossFit Championship. I only know that because I said his name 35 different times.
Well, I mean, it is a
Make
cool
it 36 starting this morning.
It is a cool looking name if you look at it on paper. But look at the way Brent Fikowski, so he went right to the bag, and you see Lazar taking a rest, really struggling between his reps, Brent not struggling. So it's that first round. And we know that Brent is a pacing genius when it comes to his movements. I mean, he's so smart about this, and he did exactly what he wanted to do. Let the first round go. I'll catch you on the swim. Then he moves right to the bag. Had the first rep done on the bag, and he's moving well ahead of the field here.
And what we saw in Heat 1 is Lazar Dukic crushed absolutely crushed those first 20 sandbag cleans.
Yeah.
And did well in the swim. Now, he worked his butt off to get around that 150, and he is paying the price on the second round of sandbag cleans after that.
You don't get extra points for winning round 1.
Fikowski done with round number 2 of the sandbag cleans, and he is all alone in the water as Fikowski is now going to move into his second 150-meter swim. But behind him is Lazar Dukic. So your top 2 men in heat number 2. No one finished in the previous heat. Alex Katulis was the closest one. He had finished nearly 100 meters of his third and final 150-meter swim. And as we said before, he struggled mightily on the sandbag, so he wasn't able to capitalize on the entirety of the event. It's almost all of his swims were damage control for the cleans. However, Fikowski, who had a controlled first set of 20 sandbag cleans, and then almost keeping the same pace, and that's kind of funny how that works. Like, you actually really don't need to push the pace faster. You just can't really slow down.
No, and that's okay. I think that's one of the elements that a lot of people forget, is that when you're pacing, once you decide to pace a particular set, you now can't fall off of that pace. You can always go faster, but if you ever go slower, or you think, well, I'll slow it down 5 seconds here, 5 seconds here, then you're off pace like that fast. So you can't get off pace. Once you decide to go that route, you can't undo that.
Now credit to Lazar Dukic, who is hanging with Fikowski.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I really am impressed because Lazar's working very hard. Like, he's doing a lot of extra work compared to Brent, and he's not that far behind. Brent made up a lot of time on that first round. And, I mean, that's maybe another 10 feet of distance that he's put, maybe a body length of distance between him and Lazar once they started this round. So he hasn't made up that much ground, or hasn't lost a whole lot of ground.
Lane number 2, Sam Stewart. Now that he is in his second set of cleans, he's one of the last athletes out of the first 150-meter swim. As Brent Fikowski leading Lazar Dukic, but not extending the lead like I thought he might have. Now that might be a strategy in terms of kind of like that middle round part of the event, knowing full well you got to go 5 and back out the swim. So one part of this is that he could be approaching this as a basically a 300-meter ocean swim, as opposed to taking that for another fast 150.
Well, and I think that that's a smart move. I'm just surprised that Lazar is able to hang in there the way he's hanging in there. Whether Brent is deciding to rest here or not, even if he was resting, I still think he should have been able to make up or put some distance between him and Lazar. But I don't know, they're just this is exactly what we saw them coming in round 1 of the swim.
Fikowski on the right in the blue cap, Lazar Dukic trying to hold on to his heels. And I think the big sign we'll see is how quickly Fikowski can get to and through the 5 cleans, and what pace he opens with on that third and final 150-meter swim. So Fikowski is out of the water at around 10:20. Lazar just behind him. Fikowski is done with his first rep, coming off one of his more successful open campaigns he's had over the years. He had a rough start to the year last year. Just getting to the games was a challenge, and obviously getting cut early on wasn't
in the plans.
It wasn't the year I think Fikowski was planning to, and I think a testament to that is that there was just so much unknown last year throughout the season while they're at the games, and when you throw that massive unknown element at someone who is a planner and a strategist, I think that really threw him for a loop last year in competition. But neck and neck, side by side, back into the water for one last 150-meter swim. And I'll say this for Lazar is that people know their athlete's strengths and weaknesses, and there should be a bit of confidence for Lazar coming into this last swim, how well he's hung on to this.
Yeah, well, I mean, again,
because Fikowski caught him so fast.
Yeah, well, okay, we can't say that Lazar's a bad swimmer. He's not a bad swimmer. He placed 8th in the swim event last year, so he's not bad at all. I'm just saying that he is working much harder. It's not as clean as Fikowski's. The fact that he is able to hold on while still bleeding out all that energy is impressive, like very impressive. I think that generally speaking, the stroke that Lazar has is above the rest of the field. So, yeah, this is a great push and a great setup for what we're going to see up in the next heat, or for the athletes in the next heat to be, okay, where do I really need to start? Where do I need to push it? I can't afford to let any piece just go, just to let it go.
Second wave of athletes coming out of the water for their second time. It's really just a two-man race in the front of the pack between Fikowski and Dukic. Fikowski making the turn around the first buoy, but Lazar still has yet to yield much more distance than when they came into the water with. Now, one thing we do need to keep our eye on is the time cap. 2 minutes before we reach that 15-minute cap. We didn't have anyone finish in heat number 1. The closest was Alex Koutoulis that got to that 100-meter mark. Fikowski still has about a 10-meter lead on Dukic, as he'll make the final turn in the upper left corner of your screen.
And it took him about a minute or so to get past that first buoy. So he's going to be right on that line, just like what we saw with the two women that finished. It's going to be somewhere around that 14:30 mark for these guys to finish. I mean, they're going to finish, which is great. Great that we actually get to see that. But, again, way tighter than I thought it was going to be.
And I think part of this is knowing the capacity of these two athletes in terms of this. I think this might be a little longer than 150 meters.
Oh, yeah. No, it is. It is.
But in terms of, those that understand and know timing, tempo, and pacing, is that, at a okay pace, you can finish 150 meters well under 2 minutes. But we're stretching this out a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about they had over 3 minutes to go into this. They might be flirting with something a little bit north of 200 to 300 for this course. Fikowski extending his lead slightly, but the challenge is that the time cap just 30 seconds away, so it's going to be close between Fikowski and the time cap. He should hang on against Lazar for the overall lead in this heat, as feet are on the ground for Fikowski, and a little sprint up the beach, and clock will stop when he gets to his mat, and Fikowski will take heat number 2, an unofficial time of 14:52. As in the background, you see Lazar just feet short of finishing underneath that 15-minute time cap. And look at the exhaustion on Fikowski. I'm just going to throw this out there. That might be a 300-meter course, to at least a 250.
Yeah, it's definitely more. It's definitely more than 150.
That might have happened, and obviously we'll have to talk to Brent about this. Is that it's hard to see how far this is from the shore.
Right.
Brent went out real fast on the first round, and then didn't extend that beyond that.
No.
Brent knows how long it takes to do a 150-meter swim, how much effort he needs to put out. If he jumped in the water with that effort and approach, but it was 250,
yeah,
I think that might have thrown him for a loop a little bit.
That's very possible, but I will say this. I think the fact that he was able to finish as hard as he did, you saw how exhausted he was at the end of that, so we know that he was able to actually push towards the end, which was good. He may have made his adjustment on that second round, and that's why we didn't see any increase. Rather than he overextended himself, I think he was thinking, okay, I need to pull back because this isn't 150 meters.
Heat 2 is done. The third and final heat of individual men's event number 1 is coming up. And you have your top athletes, your top 10, coming out of the qualifier coming up next.
Some days are tougher than others. But we see in each other what no one else can. We sweat together. We endure together. Every one of us, redefining ourselves. We achieve together. All of us.
My name is Brent Koski, and I'm from Canada. For me, competing in the Dubai CrossFit Championship, I'd say it means a lot. It's pretty exciting. It's definitely the furthest I've ever traveled to compete in CrossFit or any sport for that matter. You know, it's a totally different world here. It's amazing, but it's, you know, it's a big leap, and it was kind of on the list of places that me and my wife wanted to travel to, and we just decided let's finally do it. Let's do it this year. What excites me most about life right now is when I get a personal best or I sort of unlock a little new technique or movement I've been really struggling with. That still just brings me like a lot of joy, and I have to work a lot harder than I used to for those progressions because I've been doing it for so long. These days, most of my time is spent exercising, training for this sport, but I do have a musical side to me. So growing up, I played guitar, sang a lot, did a lot of open mics. It was pretty cool. I have 500 or so count record collection, vinyl records at home. So I'm a bit of a music buff. I suppose that'd be something that might surprise people about me, but don't pick up the guitar too much these days. My fingers are mostly spent grabbing pull-up bars, but it'll be there when I retire from this.
Innovating the barbell since 2008, and will still be innovating in 2028.
Just finished heat number 2 as heat number 3 is underway, but it was all about Brent Koski in heat number 2. One of those athletes we thought would do well coming into this event, but one of the athletes we thought we would do well overall based off how his training has changed since the games, how his open went, and coming into Dubai for the first time.
Well, I think he's just a very fun athlete to watch because he's so technical in not just his abilities, but technical in his presentation of how he goes to attack every single one of the events. The strategies I don't want to say unique, but they're extremely particular. And because of that, we got to see that in this particular event, the way he was able to handle these. We know that he is good in swim events. We know that he is good in endurance type of events. We know that he is good in even power type events, even though he's so tall. You know, if there was pull-ups or air squats or something like that, it'd be a whole different deal. But the fact that these two lined up was a great way for him to start. And then, you know, coming off a great open, this is a great footstep for him as he makes his way into this Dubai competition.
Now, on the right side of your screen, you're talking about coming off a great competition, is Roman Korenikov, who didn't win the Filthy 150 that happened a few weeks ago. But we're talking about the way he closed out that weekend, where he won 5 of the last 6 events. You're talking about one of the most red-hot athletes competing right now. I'm really curious to see how he does this weekend. He got 5th place last year at the Dubai CrossFit Championship. He has yet to get a visa to compete at the CrossFit Games.
Right.
He is one of those athletes we think he would do well. So this is kind of the biggest stage for him in terms of competing against these high-caliber athletes.
Well, and he lights up the stage, but at the same, that's what's so crazy about an athlete like Roman, is he lights up the stage so brightly on particular events, but then all of a sudden you expect him to do really well on something else, and he just doesn't. So the fact that he is, I don't want to say so up and down, but like when he's hot, and when he's not, he's not. I think that's been his Achilles heel up to this point. But when he comes to an event like this, where you have such a large number of high-caliber athletes, it allows us to really see what that competition is going to look like. I mean, I would say that there are virtually only 2 events that have the same high caliber as something like the Games. And if you can perform well in those, yeah, you definitely know exactly what you should be looking like when you make it to the big stage. I just want to see him make it and then see what it actually looks like on the big stages with the CrossFit Games.
Your third and final heat, all the athletes are into the water. I mean, when you look at the names across the board, athlete you think he'll do well, Jonne Koski. You got a swim event. The guy's a very formidable athlete. He's been kind of hampered with some injuries over the years, particularly the back. So it's curious to see how he'll handle the sandbags. But, you know, you got Travis Mayer in there, 4th place last year. And Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson, who got 2nd.
Yeah.
All right, we said Matt Fraser is out of the competition this year, so it opens up the door for, I mean, obviously it's clearly opened up the door for a new championship, but he also opened up the door to a massive, more close, competitive competition when you don't have one standing clearly head and shoulders above the rest.
It's very different. The attitude is very different when you are, if we're competing to get on the podium or competing for second. I know that, like, well, now we're just doing it for kind of posterity's sake. I mean, I know there's money and all that kind of stuff, but it's not for the ticket. Now that Matt's gone, now all of a sudden it's important again. So now it's not a battle to see I want to get on the podium. Now it's I'm gunning for number 1 because I want to get to the Games, or I want that top money, that money purse, or whatever the situation is. But you take Matt out and you take that. It's like taking the shackles off of the event and everyone else is there. You're not fighting for second. When you're fighting for second, it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's like you're fighting for the big one.
Heat 3, men's individual event number 1 underway. Started with 20 sandbag cleans, and I believe that's Jonne Koski coming in from his first 150-meter swim. Koski having a national swim team background.
I mean, look at that. He can breathe on both sides. I mean, when you have the capacity to, and the nice thing, it's not just a matter of I need to breathe more. He's looking to see where he is. Look at nice and relaxed coming out. But when you have that ability in the water, that confidence in the water, man, it just puts you well ahead of the rest of the field in an event like this.
And what we're hoping is that he's, you know, we said earlier is that he's always been hampered by his body kind of failing him at the highest level. You know, we've seen it in competition. We've seen it at the Games multiple times. But great open finish this year.
Yeah.
Top 11 in the world, number 1 in Finland. And, you know, Koski at one point in time was one of those athletes we had pegged up there during the Rich Froning era as someone that could overtake maybe that mantle if he had ever given it up. Now, Matt Fraser, Ben Smith, they kind of had something to say about that
Nah,
once they got in
absolutely.
there.
Well, I mean,
but
just the fact that he had the ability, he had the skills and the ability to podium. And he was so young, and that's what was so amazing. But he never really got his full shot. I mean, when he pulled out of the games, he pulled out and was in first place because of the swim events. So what first place finisher has ever pulled out of the games before? He's very aware of his injuries. He's very cognizant and takes care of them. But I think that he's been able to do that because he's been so young.
Travis Mayer just getting out of the water for his first swim. He's on the right side of your screen next to Roman Karenikov. See Patrick Fellner getting to his sandbag. This is his first time competing in Dubai, but there is Jonne Koski out in the water alone on the second 150-meter swim. And Koski, I mean, he looks good in the water, but he looked very good on those cleans.
Yeah, and I don't think that the weight is substantial. I think that because you can make the sandbag lift, that clean, a two-part movement, you can really protect your back. You can make sure that you're bracing with your spine so that when you do bring it up to your chest and go over your shoulder, that you're really caring for any kind of issues you have in your back. So I think you can really kind of manage that a lot better. I mean, he would look great on the first set of 20. Didn't seem to affect him. Looked smooth on the second set of 10. And then again, that's a big cut from that 20 to 10 to 5, like you're saying.
And to your point is, I think this tests your back in two different ways.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have that keeping your back tight, coming off the ground, pulling in a more bent over flexion. And then I think what is even tougher on the back is that throw over the shoulders and that massive extension and that pinch on the lower back. So if you want to test out the structural integrity of a back or say a nagging injury, I think if you can navigate a sandbag clean, it's a pretty good sign that you're okay.
Well, and with that, again, how efficient are you going to be with the technique? When you're talking about moving the sandbag, you can move it really quickly and flop it up over your shoulder if you want to. That's great. Or you can keep your chin, make it a two-piece, put the bag to your knees, put your chin on the bag so it stays up nice and high so you don't have to arch back so far to try to roll the bag up your chest.
Now, one athlete that just got out of the water is actually Lefteris Liafanitis out of Greece, and this is an individual that has been was leading the Open.
Oh yeah,
nearly. He came into last year's game with a lot of hype behind him. So, being a swim event,
you can't
such
count
a niche
that
event,
necessarily.
and that's the thing. It's such a niche style event, so you can't really pass judgment or make assumptions on how they're going to compete the rest of the weekend. Because a lot of athletes are like, look, just get me through this event.
We'll start event number 2,
and then it's on. Yeah. Jonne Koski coming into his final length of this, we'll say 150-meter swim. But they'll go around the two buoys. You can see that most of the pack is on the far right side. Look at the distance that Jonne Koski has opened up over second place. And that might be Bjørgvin Carl Gudmundsson, who has been on the podium multiple times here at the Dubai CrossFit Championship and now multiple times at the CrossFit Games. And Bjørgvin Carl Gudmundsson, I mean, he is just getting better.
Yeah, he reminds me of kind of like a Scott Panchik kind of an athlete, where it's just, it doesn't matter what event, it doesn't matter what competition setting, he's always good and he's always in the mix and he's always either on or right around the podium. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, he just is that good all the time.
Koski's got his feet on the ground. He'll make his way out of the water for the second time as he'll go back to the sandbags. And we started with 20, moved down to 10, and we will finish with 5 as he is approaching the 10-minute mark. There's a 15-minute time cap. Currently, it is Brent Fikowski with an unofficial time of 14:52 that has the time to beat. He's actually the only athlete to finish. Lazar Dudkic was so close. He's about 1 foot away from the finishing mat before the cap was called.
I think it was just because he jumped up in the air trying to do that little celebratory, I'm going to smash the sandbag.
And Koski is done back in the water before Goodmanson can even get out. And so Koski now has an opportunity, as Goodmanson is done, as he peeks over his left shoulder to see Koski's back in the water, but sitting in second and having a very good event so far. Now he's going to need a lot more time to get in the water than they think. That is a longer course than just a flat 150, which for an average swimmer would take less than 2 minutes with ease. But we've been seeing that take upwards to 3, close to 4 for a lot of these athletes here who aren't bad swimmers.
No, they're just tired swimmers. They're just exhausted swimmers now.
Goodmanson is done as he makes his way to the water.
Now BKG also did really, really well last year in the swim event, so I'm glad to see that he's up there as well. That's important.
Good to be Jeffrey Adler. Adler, who is having the year of his life so far after the Open. What Adler did in event number 4.
Oh my gosh, I saw the video of that.
Was, I was talking to Patrick Vellner about this, and that might have been the most impressive and dominating Open performance ever.
Yeah, it was.
The time difference between first and second, and then second to third. Although second was also Matt Fraser by almost 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It was unlike anything I've ever seen.
There was zero stopping. And it's not like he was going extremely fast. He just didn't stop. I mean, and that's really what a lot of people seem to miss is they try to go super fast whenever they're working, and then these long breaks instead of just staying consistent all the way through. And that was, it was just consistent moving.
Just saw Elliot Simmons finish his 3rd set of sandbag cleans. Now what we're told is that when they're in the water, as Koski passes, it might be Theophanitis. 1, the minimum work requirement is 2 full swims, so Leophanitis has 2 minutes to do that. 2, they only get a point if they get to the 2nd buoy at the time cap.
Yeah, so you have to be, which makes it tough for the athletes, because if they're not aware of that, they're going to end up pushing way more than they have to. And generally speaking, if you're going to swim 150 meters, that's not going to do any damage to you. But if you're not a great swimmer and you're having to do a lot of extra work, that's like going in and sprinting an extra mile just because, but you still have a competition. I'm going to sprint this mile as hard as I can and then still keep competing. I would choose not to have to sprint that mile if I didn't need to. So they need to be really aware of how long has it been taking them to get to that point realm. Or is it even worth it to even do that? Get in the water, splash around in the water, and let the other people just go ahead and race and then come on back in.
Kosti getting close to the end here of his final 150-meter swim. As here approaching the 14-minute mark, the time to beat unofficially was set by Brent Fikowski at 14:52, and Koski has turned on the jets. And with a little jog up the beach, Jonne Koski is basically picking up where he left off in the swim events at the CrossFit Games. Koski is going to win men's individual event number 1.
And that was done exactly the way, if you think about how it should look, that's how it should look. You want to have good, clean swimming. You don't want the sandbags to slow you down, and you want to be able to push at the end. And, man, that was exactly what Jonne did. Beautiful race. Beautiful race. But again, you need to have that swimming ability to do that.
Capitalize when you can, and Koski did. That is going to be a good way to start off the weekend for Jonne Koski, as we are 5 seconds away from that 15-minute cap. And as we saw on the women's side, only 2 will finish individual event number 1. It started with Fikowski in heat number 2. Jonne Koski will take the event in heat number 3. And athletes coming out of the water are actually athletes on their second swim, as Bjorkvin Carl Gudmundsson is coming out of the water. So Gudmundsson will get second in this heat. And the other athletes unable to complete the swim in the time cap are going to get 0 points. They'll still be in the competition. But some of those athletes, I mean, I think Theophanitis is one of those athletes, and that is not the way you want to start a weekend.
No, no.
Especially after the games that he had, getting cut after the second event.
Exactly. And I would not expect to see this sort of a setup with that many people that had that issue in the final heat.
The 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championships. We had teams earlier this morning and the women, although the day is not over. We are just getting started as we close things out here at the beach for the Dubai CrossFit Championship.
So you came in unofficially something like 40 seconds faster than the previous fastest time. Now, obviously, you have a swimming background, and that helps. We've seen you do well in this kind of event at games before. But take me into the water here in Dubai. How was this event different for you from other swimming events?
Well, I never done the combination with the sandbag before, and it definitely surprised me. I mean, I started pretty fast. I wanted to be the first one in the water, and I could feel it in my biceps from the first swim. And it wasn't as relaxed as it normally is, so you kind of get your arms very pumped, your shoulders are a bit tired, which makes swimming a lot harder than if it's combined with just the swim or some other cardio.
Now, this is a great start to the sanctionals season for you. Unfortunately, a slightly delayed start because you had to withdraw from the Filthy 150 a couple weeks ago with the stomach bug, food poisoning. But now that you're beginning your season here, I mean, does it change anything for you being one event in rather than how you had originally scheduled it?
Well, yeah, it makes, I mean, I need to return back to the whiteboard and make some plans. And we'll see how this one goes. If it goes well, I might go into a long waited off season for a couple of weeks and then make a plan for the rest of the season. But for sure, I've been here before and it's absolutely fantastic competition. Now when the weather finally got a little bit better, it's much nicer to throw down outside as well.
Absolutely. Well, congrats so far.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And that will wrap up a competition here for event number 1 at the beach to start things off the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championship. And what a start to it. I mean, it started off a little rough. We didn't see it earlier, but it was pouring rain earlier this morning before the teams started things off. But it is now cleared up, and it should be a beautiful 4 days of competition.
Yeah, an amazing races already. I love the fact that we start off with the swim, but I love the fact that we started off with heavy downpour rain and then like there's not a cloud in the sky. It's a beautiful day and it's just the beginning of this competition.
Team Prepare takes in event number 1, followed by Emma Tall for the women's side, and it was Jonne Koski on the individual men taking the first event of the 2019 Dubai CrossFit Championship. Stay tuned for our coverage all weekend long. For Bill Grundler, Nikki Brazier, I'm Chase Singer. We'll see you guys later tonight.
Видишь, шок, не могу на скорость.